Welcome back, my name is Arya. I don't waste your time, so let's get straight into it. In today's video, we're going to go over the possible candidates of where I'm going to be putting the new cash that I deposited into my account. It's sitting at roughly 7% of my current portfolio. So in today's video, we're going to go over 3 companies that I'm possibly thinking of adding more to. And of course, as I mentioned, all 3 are in fact in my portfolio. Starting us off, we're going to have Salesforce, ticker symbol CRM, which is in fact the customer relationship management. I view Salesforce as essentially a just standard of operating practice for enterprise companies. It's a company that offers software that is so valuable that every single enterprise needs to buy it, and the value unlock that Salesforce software has for various enterprises is just so incredible that every single S&P 500 company essentially needs a customer relationship management, and more often than not, because Salesforce is the biggest scale player in that industry, they end up going with Salesforce. And I'm going to point to a quote that I actually couldn't find the exact quote, but the Moody CEO, I believe, said this. He said, quote, "We're in the standards business where your last sale gives you the right for your next sale." And essentially what he meant by that is because Moody's has been around for so long, providing credit ratings and so on, they're able to, like, their next sale is a result of them being around for so long and being a standard of that industry, right? And I think Salesforce in the future is going to move to being something like that, where everybody just defaults to Salesforce because they know it's such a safe pick and the value unlock and so on and so forth, right? Similar to how Microsoft Office with their Excel and all that type of stuff is as well. One last thing before we leave off on Salesforce, I want to point to why I'm so bullish on the company. And the reason for that is the massive amount of free cash flow that they're able to produce. If you look in the past year, and this is one fiscal year ahead, right? So they finished their fiscal year in January. That's why this is actually the 2023 results, roughly. And as you could see, Salesforce was on a steady trend upwards, roughly moving in line. You could probably draw a pretty decent trend line upwards. And then the 2024 figures just looks like a glitch. It looks like a data issue, how much free cash flow they were able to produce. And this is because the massive amounts of cost cutting that Salesforce underwent in the most recent year. And so I don't expect this to continue for years and years to come, but I do think that it is a steady trend in the foreseeable future. Additionally, the newfound focus on capital return. So they just recently issued a dividend, and additionally, they're starting to buy back shares roughly at a 2% pace on a year-over-year basis. I think all these various factors playing in together, they can provide years of outperformance from Salesforce. Moving on, the second company in question today is going to be Evolution Gaming, which is a company that I've done repeated videos about, talking about how I think it is just absolutely dirt cheap compared to the amount of growth you're getting. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but one thing I want to point to is the valuation over time. This is roughly on the 10-year time, or no, since they IPO'd, right? So since they IPO'd, they're trading at the cheapest valuation the company has ever been. Even if we zoom in the past year, it was trading at roughly around the 20 times multiple, and it is exactly there today. Even if you were to zoom to the average price to free cash flow over the past, since they IPO'd, again, you could see that it has never been cheaper. So this is a incredible growth story that for whatever reason has just sold off massively and is trading at the lowest valuation in its entire history. Meanwhile, you have sources like this from Grandview Research saying that they expect that the total global online gambling market is expected to grow at 12%. And again, if you watched my video on Evolution Gaming, the deep dive stock analysis, you would know that Evolution Gaming is essentially a pure play on capturing this type of growth. So the market's growing at 12%, and Evolution Gaming is capturing market share from its competitors. And on top of that, they're able to grow a little bit on top of that just because of the scale economies driven business that they have, allowing them to increase the margins, thus the bottom line. So your earnings per share, your net income, your free cash flow, all that type of stuff is able to grow even a little bit faster than that. You're looking at maybe 18, closer to 20% growth on that front. So again, absolutely incredible company trading at very, very, very cheap valuations. And I completely expect this company to be able to grow out into the future. Last but not least, of course, the Google. And I didn't use free cash flow valuation for this one just because I think the recent CapEx that Google has been doing into its data centers to buy the NVIDIA chips and all that type of stuff skews the free cash flow numbers a little bit. So we're going to rely on PE here. As you can see with Google over the past 10 years, it's roughly in line with if you were to draw just like an average line in the middle here. It's not incredibly cheap like it was back here in December 2022, and it's not incredibly expensive like it was in 2018. But if you were to go over and look at the average PE ratio over the past 20 years, you would notice that it is on the low end of things, right? And of course, Google's trading at all-time highs. So this is one that I'm a little bit more hesitant on, but nonetheless, I think it's an incredible company that's growing incredibly fast. And they recently actually had their cloud computing division turn profitable. Well, it turned profitable all the way back here in Q1, but I think it's 2 quarters in a row where the operating margins have like stabilized and they're doing quite well, right? So I think this is going to continue improving out into the future. And to give you an idea, Amazon and Microsoft, I guess we can't really compare it to, but Amazon specifically, they have operating margins of roughly 25-30%. So as this starts to grow and get bigger, it's less of a drag on margins. I think that could provide incredible margin expansion out into the future, which should hopefully translate to the stock appreciating as a result. Furthermore, because Google has been trading at very cheap valuations in the past, it's allowed them to decrease shares outstanding massively, and I also expect this to continue out into the future. So this is a very strong company, very strong margins, very strong moat additionally, and I think all these things combined allows it to be a very good candidate for me to deploy my cash. Jumping over here to the spreadsheet, which I include in every single one of my videos, essentially what we're doing here is we're taking the current valuation of the company and we're dividing it by the growth rate of the company. And of course, we pay attention to free cash flow because that is what can be distributed out to us shareholders. That's where the dividends come from. That's where the share buybacks come from. That's where the debt pay downs come from, everything like that, right? And you would be able to see that Evolution Gaming is by far the cheapest company in my investable universe, hence why I think it's a worthy candidate. So I'm maybe potentially thinking of adding a little bit more to that. Salesforce, of course, is a very high conviction bet in my portfolio, second biggest holding, roughly at 20%. So I'm a little bit more hesitant on adding to that one, but nonetheless, I think some of the contributions are going to end up there. And last but not least, Google. Google, again, a little bit more on the expensive side, but still doesn't look too bad compared to historical. I think it's roughly fair value as it stands currently, but I don't know. I gotta sleep on this one before I make a purchase decision. Last but not least, I'd like to ask you to do something that costs you nothing, but would help me out greatly. If you could hit the subscribe button, you could always go back on that decision if you end up not liking the videos, but I highly doubt that. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.